Where common sense fails. With your hosts, Chris and Drew. Warning, content may be hot.
Prepare yourself.
Okay, let's go.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. We left episode 1 at a little bit of a cliffhanger, so let's start this episode where we left off.
Would you date a listener?
Whoa. Would I date? Well, they say you shouldn't mix business with pleasure. But I'm just trying to work out, is the podcast business or is the podcast pleasure? That puts a different spin on it, right?
I think you're avoiding the question, really. So let's go back to the original question.
Okay.
Would you date a listener?
Right. So now you're leading me down some kind of weird path here. So now what you're actually probably getting me to do here is do a call out to say if there are any. All right, here we go. Here's the advert, right? If there are any gorgeous, beautiful, tall, brunette women who fancy sort of going on a date and just seeing what happens.
It could be strictly platonic. I mean, the first date could be just platonic.
With someone like me, then here you go. Here is the invite. And let's
calling card. Yeah.
And let's just see how many replies we get from that. I can tell you now, big fat 0. But anyway, let's put it out there. If we do find, if the Chris Saffel Our Tune, whatever we're going to call it, starts getting traction and we start to get people saying, actually, I'd go on a date with him, then you know what? I might just do it.
It's an interesting ethical debate, really, because strictly speaking, are they a fan?
Wow. So you really are asking some tough questions, right? For starters, do you really think we're going to get fans? So people that listen to us, are they going to be classed as a fan? You know, we'll have to send them kind of like, didn't Terry Wogan have like a name that he termed all his listeners? What on earth are we going to call our fans, that people that listen to us? The saddos? I don't know. I mean, you know, people that have no life. You know, we're going to have to come up with something that makes people who listen to Where Common Sense Fails podcast with Chris and Drew, what are we going to call them? Right, over to you for 5 minutes.
Well, I'm just thinking about. So, this is going to be a blend of silly things, serious things, soppy things. Yeah. Well, I suppose the other question is, who are you, and what, you know? I suppose, which one are you? Are you the serious one or the funny one?
Am I? When have I ever been serious in my life? You know, so you tend to find the people that talk a lot talk a load of crap because they just got verbal diarrhea. The ones that talk little are the sensible ones. So you are the sensible one out of this. I am most definitely the joker, the
silly one. The silly one.
No, and not on purpose. I don't do, by the way, in case anybody complains and says you're not very funny at all, I don't mean to be, but if you were to sort of pigeonhole, is it Drew or is it me as the funny or the serious one? Anyway, there you go. That was the R-Tune. Does that bring back memories now? No, he says.
It does. I tell you what would be really good is, because you're in your office, aren't you?
I am, yes.
And I think...
Whoa, hang on forever. I'm in the studio.
The studio, yeah.
Let's pick it up, right?
Okay, studio. So wouldn't it be good if every once in a while the cleaner came on? I've actually had the... And to be honest, I'm not really too sure where this is going right now, but, you know, just, you know, I suppose a drop-in cleaner that loves your bins.
Okay.
Loves you.
Can I just say something here? The cleaner comes in on a Saturday morning randomly between the hours of 8 and 11. So unless I'm doing the podcast, then, you know, I'm going to miss the cleaner. She only comes in once a week.
I'm not too sure what that says about you, really, but
it says I'm very clean, right? And I don't need a cleaner coming in all that time because we're not messy. You've been here. You've been in the office. You saw how lovely and clean it was.
It's lovely, yeah. Sorry, the studio. So I've been to the studio, yeah. Anyway, Chris, I think there is something in this. I think we need the cleaner on at some point.
Okay.
Why on earth not?
Have you got a cleaner?
Yeah, we did have, but obviously in lockdown, we don't.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you ask Bex, right, to dress up a little bit, come in and pretend that she's a cleaner.
Right. Yeah, no, do you know what? It's really interesting because is this an intro onto the next subject of potentially, I'm using the word potentially, and it's a question, it's a debate. Is common sense failing right now in how much of our past we're sort of tearing up, we're ripping apart? I mean,
oh my
example,
God, you're going very topical.
Fawlty Towers. Yeah, well, Fawlty Towers. I mean, that single episode of Fawlty Towers with the Germans, I think it's one of the most famous ones of the Fawlty Towers. I think it probably is the one that us Brits have loved and enjoyed, and because of recent events, and I think it's probably worthwhile saying, is that we recognise a lot of the issues that have gone on that do need to be talked about, but it does seem that we're going, using your term, and we don't know what it means right now, a little bit woke over this. Are we going over the top? Are we losing common sense where we're taking off prime comedy from the TV streaming devices?
Okay.
I was going to say off the air.
Now we need to be very careful here because we could be taken off air before we've even started, right? So I don't want to cause any upset with anyone, but I've just very quickly did a what is the definition of woke, and according to the internet, when you type in what is the meaning of woke, its definition is that it is an alert to injustice in society, especially racism. Now, that is just what the definition of woke is. To come back to your point around things like Fawlty Towers, I think my opinion on this is you can't change history. You can't change what's gone on, right? And you shouldn't really be judging history based on what the values that we hold today. Okay, because the values that we hold today, probably weren't around or didn't apply back then. So this whole thing around slavery and all that kind of stuff. So we should educate. We should never forget about history, and we should learn from history. And then the other thing is, when you look at that episode of Fawlty Towers and it's been taken down because it might offend someone, I think that episode came out in whatever it was, 75, 76 or something. And I think the other thing that I think people need to maybe realize is if they can't understand the meaning and the context of how it was done at the time, it's a joke. It was for comedic value. And I think if people nowadays can't look back at that and go, oh yeah, back then, that was deemed funny. It might not be funny now. People might get upset by it now, but that's not to say that back then, it was deemed funny and it was part of history, right? Otherwise, I think we run the risk of desensitizing absolutely everything and saying that basically you can find fault in anything that's gone on. You'll always find someone who will get upset by something that's happened, and I think we just need to look at it, like I say, in context, and in the times that it was in at the when it was played. I don't get offended by it, but that's not to say that others won't get offended by it. But do we have to take it off streaming services? I don't know.
It's an interesting one. To if the statistics were available, even if it was the last 5 years, how many complaints have been registered against that one particular episode, and to understand the sort of the age group, the nationality, with that, at a guess. And I'm guessing now, and again, maybe it's worthwhile doing some research. Perhaps what we should be doing, another cliffhanger, is that we do write to the BBC and say, hey, we're doing a podcast. It came up in discussion. And can you tell us how many complaints you've had about this particular episode of Fawlty Towers, and see whether we get a response?
But it's not just that, though, is it? Because you look at Alf Garnett, right? That character. You look at Love Thy Neighbour, that, and if you remember that from the 70s, that they would never play that again now. You'd never have those programs made again. But the point about Love Thy Neighbour was, ironically, it was the white guy that was made out to look stupid. The white guy was always complaining about the black guy moving in next to him and how he didn't like it and this, that, and the other. And if anything, I thought it highlighted the ignorance of the white guy. Did. Right?
It did, and actually,
and made him look stupid.
It did, but also I think there was a real sense of coming together and getting along with. So I think that whilst there was probably what we'd look back and go, oh, that's a bit close to the mark. Actually, I think that the program was potentially more unifying, because actually they did get on.
Yeah,
there was a tenderness between them.
I mean, I've seen these on these. I mean, the Channel 4 or Channel 5, I think, do a series of this where they go,
they do
programs that were, you couldn't believe were made, and they had things like Love Thy Neighbour on it. They had things like Mind Your Language was another one. Yeah. Now, when you look back, based on today's standards, they're shocking. Yep. You can sit there and say, oh my God, I can't believe that got made. But I think what we need to realize is back then, times were different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And based on today's rules, of course it would never get made. But, who's to say that in 40 years' time, people look back now and they go, oh my God, look at the X Factor. They shamed people by pressing those buttons and putting big X's on there. How dare they do that kind of stuff? The mental impact that's having on those people, telling them that they weren't good enough to go to, everybody should have got around to, you don't know they might be banning X Factor in 40 years' time because of the people, our children in 40 years' time might be sitting there going, that was disgusting. I can't believe they even put that on TV. Because but today we're thinking, it's fine. It's all these reality TV shows and everything else. You never know. In 20, 30 years' time, they might be banned because people's views in 30 years' time are so against. I mean, Love Island. Look at Love Island. I mean, I think that's bad now anyway, in the sort of mental torture that it puts them through. But the young people love it. Because that's the way it is. And like I say, in 30 years' time, people will probably look at Love Island and go, I can't believe they made that.
Well, I can't believe they made it today anyway.
Yeah, there is that as well. Anyway, so in terms of, we've spoken a lot about things. I've come up with a couple of things that I've spoken about in terms of common sense. Is there anything you want to add? Anything we've missed? Anything we want to add into this? Have you thought about the song that defines your lockdown?
Well, yes, yeah, and I think it's one of the songs, because my kids are into Just Dance. But the one song which they play frequently and they love dancing to is Rasputin by Boney M. But that really doesn't really link to anything COVID other than just proximity of them doing these things.
Well, no, I mean, it is relevant because it doesn't have to be specifically about COVID or wherever it might be. But if it reminds you of that period, then absolutely it does.
There we go.
So it's on the playlist list.
Yeah.
So, when we've got maybe 12, we will put together a playlist. We could probably put it on Spotify, and we might be able to even put it into the content of the podcast, because something I learned yesterday was how to put, our artwork that we've had done.
Mm-hmm.
I can tag that into the podcast so that when people play it on their podcast player, it will bring up our pictures.
Ooh.
So I now know how to put our backdrops that we've got and our artwork into the meta tag of the podcast.
So I think what would be good is that we prepare a question for each other. You don't know what the question is going to be. And it gets to a certain point where we actually ask the question and we have to answer it.
Are we going to be made aware of the question before the episode?
No.
So you're going to ask it and we have to answer it there and then, or do we get time to think about it?
You have to answer it there and then.
Oh, that's unfair.
No. I think it's the equivalent of your countdown with somebody doing their little slot, their elevator pitch. So this could be, the question. So you get an opportunity to ask, your own question as well.
Is it on a particular subject? I think we should try and categorize it so that each week, it might be around a certain thing. Otherwise, it's or are you wanting it to be completely random?
I think it's a completely random question, but I think
there's an element of risk.
There's an element of risk, and perhaps it's a sort of a question of I've been thinking about, or I meant to ask you about, or I've always wanted to ask you.
Oh my God, that's quite scary.
Yeah, it's a bit of risky, isn't it? It's just.
And is it going to be about the other person, or can it be anything?
I think it can be anything. I think it's just a random.
Okay, it's got to be. It can't be. It's got to be broadcastable, though.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, absolutely. It's got to be legal. Yeah.
So your drug taking days, I can't ask about. By the way, everybody, if anybody is actually listening to this, he's never taken drugs. Well, certainly not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay.
There's a disclaimer, right?
There is a disclaimer on that one. It'd be interesting to get turned down.
Well, let's do that then. So the next episode, whenever we're going to record it, I'd like us to see if we can try and get one a week. Mm-hmm. Whether or not we do it of an evening like this, or so that you can get into that routine with the family, so they all know that. I know Wednesday nights is when Daddy goes and does his podcasting. I don't know. You know me, I'm dead easy going. I have such a busy life. I have such a busy life that I really have to cram this in. So yeah, I'm easygoing on that sense. And even, you know what I'd love us to do as well. If you want one, I'll send one down to you. I bought another mic that plugs into your phone. Right? Oh. So it's like a portable mic thing, like a clip mic, like you see them on the TV. And what I'll do is I'll send one down to you, because what I'd love you to do is maybe sometimes when we're back off lockdown, or maybe when a coffee shop's opened, or wherever it might be, you could go on a Sunday morning, go and get your papers, go into a coffee shop, put your little mic on, plug it into your phone, and then we can do a sort of 10, 15 minutes remote session. So an outside broadcast. And you could be recording live from the Kajagoogoo coffee shop in Leamington Spa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll be interesting, actually.
or even in the car. Although we probably shouldn't do that.
What, dog casting?
It could be a live. Here I am. This is Drew. This is Drew reporting live from the council car park in Leamington Spa about the dogging session on a Thursday night at 11 p.m. Excuse me, madam. Can I just interrupt? Wait your turn. Get to the back of the queue. Well, I'm actually just trying to find out exactly what goes on in these kind of corners of the car park at this time of night. Can't you say?
Do I have to dye my hair red like Stacey Dooley?
I've no idea. I'd wear a wig and a hat. But, we've got lots of things to talk about. And I don't know whether or not you want to, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm not necessarily going to leave this in the podcast, but just something for you to think about. It would be good, because I know you're trying to, you've come up with the idea about me and my story, the Chris Safalower tune section of the podcast. I think we should also go over your history as well. Sometimes when you set up those dating sort of
speed
nights,
dating,
the speed dating in Leamington, because I reckon there's some great stories in there as well. And I think that will just get people listening and laughing, right? And again, as long as you're protecting the innocent, we're not disclosing any personal data here. But I think just those stories are great because something that you hear sometimes, and especially me over these last few weeks, where my emotional state's been all over the place. What with all that's gone on in my life, and you do sometimes think that it's just you, it's just me. I'm experiencing this. No one else knows what I'm going through. And then you hear other people and you think, you know what? Loads of people go through this. It's not just me, right? Because everyone's got those experiences. So I think when we tell those stories, about that, I'm hoping that we'll touch a nerve with people and people will sit there and go, do you know what? Yeah, those guys are real because I think like that. So there you go. I'm just really, really thinking that through, and you've got plenty of time to think about it. We don't need an answer.
Yeah. I need to think about that. But no, actually representing vulnerability. Let's do it. Let's find a way of going there. That's it. We could have the going there slot.
Now, that's really creepy. That sound out.
Going there.
I'm gonna have to put that one to Mike to see whether or not he can do anything with that, because that's kind of like, we could turn that into like a really freaky sounding. This is the going there section. Like, oh my God. And he will be able to turn it into something really. He'll produce that, and it'll be like, oh my God, you're kidding me, right? But look, I think we've chatted loads. Well, that's it for this week, listeners. Tune in next time, where you'll hear Drew talk about how he was poached and then dropped to go and host with another podcast. Our shout out for some celebrity interviews and also updates on Chris's love life. Should be fun.
And that's it for this week's episode. Add us to your podcatcher or on iTunes now so that you can make sure you never miss out on another second of our wonderful podcast. We would hate for you to miss out. Have a great week, everyone.
Friend us on your socials and let's connect.